Hello and welcome to SEGA News Bits Extra. I'm Barry and with me is George.
Hello, everybody.
I don't have an echo, so I just have to fake it.
Of course.
So, we are going to be talking about some stuff that did not make the SEGA News Bits on the main YouTube channel. I don't know why we didn't do some of these, but who knows? Maybe we were busy with the 4th of July. We were celebrating America. You know, we don't have time to talk about Japanese things.
It's a very important day to celebrate.
It is. I lay under my bed and cry every 4th of July. So, we are going to be talking about Shenmue, some Master System stuff, and then George has something to talk about at the end. Let's kick off with the Shenmue news. So, first off, I'm really happy the way they handled this announcement. There was a press release. There was an actual website that had a frequently asked questions. There was a trailer. I don't think I've talked about this much, but I really don't like how SEGA Europe has been handling the dissemination of information. Well, that was hard to say. Because they'll pick YouTubers and then they'll be like, Adam Korolak, make a 10-minute video and then sprinkle 2 interesting things in there. And he'll do it. And I'm like, what do I have to listen to? And then it'll be like, save features transfer from game 1 to 2. And I'm like, well, obviously. Why wouldn't they?
And I also got confused when I read that. Okay, when I think of game transfers, I wrote a whole article about how it was the Dreamcast save files, because every time I think in my head, like, oh, you're going to transfer this to a console to another console, I always think that has to be inter-consoles. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But even then, like, I kind of knew that it was going to be, the saves were going to transfer from 1 and 2. I mean, I think we all expected that. I don't know why that was news.
It just seemed like a really obvious thing to announce, so I can understand why you'd hear that and go, oh, are you announcing it? Yeah, because it's the Dreamcast save going over, right? How are you doing that? That's really interesting. But so they announced the date first off, August 21st, which is much sooner than we thought. August is actually a big month for SEGA games. We have Yakuza 0 on PC, we have Shenmue 1 and 2, and we have Kiwami 2, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of content releasing that month. So I think the big thing with this is that they had a frequently asked questions page, and the big things revealed are actually, I don't know, because most of the reveals were actually things that were, I don't know, kind of depressing. Like gameplay's in 16:9, which is great. However, cutscenes for Shenmue will be 4:3, and then Shenmue 2, if you look at the screenshots, they're going to be letterboxed and then in 4:3. So it's like there's black bars all over the image, like all around it.
Why do you think they did that?
I mean, I know that in Shenmue 2, they did letterboxes for all of the cutscenes, but I thought they would zoom in, because if you zoom in, it still fills the frame. But maybe they weren't able to figure that out. I think the games will play great, and I'm not too bothered by that. But I could see a lot of people reviewing these and going, it's unfortunate that the cutscenes are not 16:9. And I think especially coming after all of these other remasters coming out that actually put a lot of effort into them. Not to say that they're not putting effort into this, but it seems kind of lazy.
It kind of does, but then we're talking about, like, there has to be an excuse. This is why I kind of wish they would do, like, developer diaries. I know they're doing this right now with Sonic Mania Plus. They're doing the whole, like, I think it's a little too late. I wish that they would do it for this one, where they kind of discussed on their YouTube channel where, like, why the changes were made and what they were thinking and how it works, and them actually showing you how it works since it's coming out so soon. Like, every week have one until the game launches. I like Adam. He's a cool guy. I like his channel. I think he does cool content. But they're not letting him play the game. They're not letting him show us. He's just talking and telling us about it, which is fine, but, like, it's not the same without showing you, you know? And then, like, having the developer that actually made the game and the port telling you why they did what they did.
Right. And I know from what I've heard that, you know, in these 3D games, off to the sides, sometimes not everything's rendered. Sometimes there's characters waiting to appear, so they're not actually fully animated. Sometimes, you know, they'll just be lazy and move garbage off to the side. So, like, I'm trying to remember, like, if a character reaches behind their back and takes out a Chaos Emerald, that Chaos Emerald would be sitting off to the side. And then when that asset was needed, it would move into their hand from behind their back, you know, something like that. And at the same time, you know, like Jet Set Radio was 16:9, Sonic Adventure 2 was for all the cutscenes, but Sonic Adventure 1 wasn't. And I thought those days were gone. They're not. I'm talking too much about it, I guess, but it does kind of show that they're not going all in on this. I also heard that the what is that called? The passport will not be on this, like all that.
And the online stuff isn't going to be on here.
Yeah, and from what I remember, a lot of it was just like data, so it would be like you walked 500 miles, you've collected 50,000 things, you know. It was not super interesting, but I thought it was kind of cool to click around, and there were special capsule toys you could get, so I'm wondering if they'll work those in at all, or if not, then just, I guess it's like trashed content.
And there was also higher resolution models on the passport. It would have been cool if they used that. I'm not sure if they are. Did they already say that they are using the original one?
I think they're using the originals.
They only had like 3 or 4 models on the passport disc, so it would be kind of weird that like some of the characters look really, really good, and then you look at the people in the street and they look really bad.
I was just gonna say, you know, there are some good things. There's HD resolution rendering, updated user interface, they said full controller and mouse support. You can move Rio around with the analog stick. So it's sounding good. And all the arcade games will be there, which kind of surprised me they had to tell us that. Like, I guess people were afraid that the game would release and it would be like, where's Outrun? But all in all, I'm looking forward to it. It's a good price, $30.
Yeah, it's a good price. I think that's the best thing the thing has going for it. Each game is $15, and if you buy it retro on eBay, you'd probably be spending more, which is kind of funny because I didn't think these games were that expensive that long ago.
No, I bought a second copy for like $20 about 4 years ago, and now people are going, hey, I just bought Shenmue for $65. Did I get a good deal? And I'm like, well, Remaster comes out in a few months, so I don't know. You can ask yourself that. Moving on to the next story, so I'm looking forward to this. Bitmap Books is releasing a Sega Master System book. It's a visual compendium, a part of a series that they've been doing for a long time, but this is the first Sega game or Sega system that they're covering, and they've turned to Kickstarter to kickstart it, which seems to be the thing everyone does with Sega licensed. I think it's kind of interesting how Sega's like, yeah, you can have our license, just do a Kickstarter.
Well, I think it's for like a book publisher like this, you have to have pre-orders so you can kind of know what to like print, and I think it makes it cheaper. So I think I can see them, a lot of these like, okay, so like I think before the age of Kickstarter, a lot of these projects wouldn't happen. Like who's sitting there going like, we need to make a Master System book. That's where the real money lies. So it's nice to see, because like Master System is not that popular compared to the Sega Genesis, the Dreamcast. So I'm glad that somebody's doing it. Like I wouldn't do it because I don't think there's enough audience for it, and there's a lot of work to put in. I mean, this is just a visual one, but still a lot of work to be put into it. Yeah,
absolutely. And the book itself, it looks pretty good. I'm glad that they're doing things like showing the hardware, like photos of the hardware. Because to be honest, I don't get too excited by these full page spreads of like pixel art. It seems like something that I can look at if I just play a ROM or if I play a original cartridge version. I think looking at pixel art in a book is not that interesting to me. I'm more interested in concept art, package design. So they are covering those sorts of things, which is cool. And so far, their stretch goals have actually really, it's at 100, it's at, boy, I can't tell. It's like in different units. So right now it's at, I see, it's at 79,000 pounds. And so they have added additional pages, they've added gatefold spreads, and bookmark ribbons. Now this company, they got into some legal trouble with Nintendo. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, we follow them on Twitter, but like I think we discussed this in the past when we were like, wait, why are these guys doing Nintendo books? Like, do they have a license for this? Remember we discussed this?
Yeah.
Apparently they didn't have a license.
Yeah.
I thought they did. I'm like, maybe they do. I mean, we never know. Like, Nintendo's really strict. No, they didn't.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the book? How much does it cost?
The tier that I actually pledged at was the $60 one because I would get a hardback book and a blueprint poster, and then I added a little bit on to get some like postcards and stuff. But yeah, that's but I think you can get a softcover book for about $33. So that's not bad. And you get 3D glasses, bookmark, and a PDF version as well.
Yeah, if you guys are into the Master System and you guys have like nostalgia feelings about the Master System, or you're just a big Sega fan and you love Sega hardware, check out the book. It looks pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
You want me to talk about the last bit, or are we doing one more story?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, get into it.
Okay, Hideki Sato is a Sega creator. He only made all the main Sega consoles. He designed them himself. So this is from the SG-1000 all the way to the Dreamcast. He did not do the Pico, so Barry doesn't like him that much. But
don't hate this guy.
There's this thing they're doing in Japan where they're doing like an oral history of kind of like the history of Japan in the video games. And they did an interview with Hideki Sato, and the interview is literally like, let me check. It says it right here. It's like 160 pages or some crazy, 150 pages long of him talking about making the Sega Saturn and how like he had to change the Sega Saturn because of the PlayStation. You know, all the whole thing we always hear about. And there was this really interesting bit where he talked about having dinner with Ken Kudaraji. I don't even know how to say his name. The founder of PlayStation, basically, the guy that created PlayStation, and how they would have these like monthly dinners, and how he would like talk down to him and basically tell him like, oh, you guys will never beat Sony. We have like a whole factory. He was like so proud of his like achievement on how they made a console. Like the way Sega made consoles is, okay, they needed a CD drive, they had to go buy it from somebody. They needed a CPU, they had to go buy it from a company. While Sony manufactured everything in-house, like the CD-ROM drives and stuff, so they could actually lower the prices and beat Sega. And there was no way Sega would ever be lower than them, unless like another company hated Sony and they wanted to lose money. But so that's why they, like he was just saying, like they were born to fail, and apparently Sony approached them during the Sega Saturn, and they told them, you should you should make third-party games for Sony, and we'll give you, I guess, privilege over other third parties. And Sega refused because, according to Hideki Sato, the reason that Sega's name was so popular is because every time you played a great game, the first logo that would pop up on the screen was Sega. And people remember Sega. So they didn't want to give that up to Sony and have them take credit for all the hard work they did. The way Sega took credit for all the hard work other developers did on their consoles. So, so what do you think about this? And do you think that Sega should have just went third party in the Sega Saturn? And do you think it would have been like totally different now for them?
I mean, in hindsight, it probably would have been a good business decision, but I can't imagine a world where we didn't have the Saturn live its full lifespan and the Dreamcast come out. I think the Dreamcast, just as a fan, had to happen. I can't imagine, without it. But I think it was really shitty of Sony. They're like, I was reading this and he's calling him like this isn't like in the Yakuza games they call him like Kuro-chan.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like something you call younger people, right?
Yeah.
And he says he's only a few months difference, and the guy's still going, oh.
It's kind of like
Hideki-chan.
Like he's like small. What is it like? In Japan, the age is more respectful, so he's basically telling him, you're a little kid, and I'm like the adult here, right?
When they have like 2 months. Yeah, and what if Hideki-chan was like, I was 2 months premature, so we're actually the same age, like something like that. Like,
and we're pretending that 2 months really even matters. I think even a decade matters. I mean, there's people that are like a decade younger than us that are football players that make multi-million dollars. I'm not going to go and be like, hey, kid. They're like, they're physical specimens. They're like bigger than me. They're like 6'7". I'm not going to be like talking down to them, Age doesn't really matter, I mean, in my opinion. But 2 months especially.
And I like PlayStation hardware, but let's not kid ourselves. Like, the stuff that Hideki Sato did with Sega is like so much more important, and just like the hardware design and like the technical aspects, I just think are much more interesting than what Sony was putting out. Especially if you're just looking at the first PlayStation and comparing that to like the Saturn and the Dreamcast to come. Like, it just seems like, well, we're the big corporation that just started video games. You guys should give up and join us. And you're telling this to someone who made the SG-1000 in like the mid 80s, you know.
And this is part of I was actually going to do a video on my personal channel about this that was basically about all the time that Sony lied in their history, but like if I did it, it'd be like an hour-long video. But he even talks about here about how they lied about the PlayStation's power to sell units. I think we've seen this in the history of Sony where they're really good at hyping people up and lying. And then right here, he's talked about how he could have technically sold the Sega Saturn as a 16-bit console if they really wanted to. It's kind of like the Jaguar kind of thing, but I don't think they did. Like, I don't remember ever Sega saying it's 64 bits. I always remember it being 32 bits, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, at least they have some honor there. But, like, I guess honor doesn't win in the console races because money does. So, Sega walked. And that's the ending for this episode. We talked about Sega Saturn. We talked about Master System books. We talked about Shenmue.
So we covered everything.
We covered everything that's important.
Yeah.
If you guys like this episode, I mean, you guys already... Bye. See you next week. I'm not going to end this... All right.
If you guys like this, please support us at the $10 level or the $5 level. And they're like, we already are.